Welcome to the Foot Bliss program. You're listening to Maree Gifkins. Now let's just start with a phone number, shall we? So 0272 49 50 90. So for the last month we've been listening to a little bit more about myself and how my father has shaped my life and my daughter and their influence on what's happened in my life. So it's been very good, and so I thought I would just give you a little bit more detail about myself again, and so hold on. So there's more to come. So I guess right from the word go, I've always believed in a God, a creator. I've never had to question it or find proof or understand it on great lengths or study it. It's always been there within me, so I've been very lucky or very fortunate, I believe. And I've always remembered a vision. Yes, it's just been in my headspace forever. And the vision was of a little girl running down the hills, and there was no fences, there were flowers, and she was running down the hill, and she was possibly about 4 years old. And it was one of those visions, you know, that you're looking at yourself, you know, you're viewing yourself, and I'm watching this little girl, and then she stops and she bends down and she looks at the flowers. She didn't pick a flower, but she's looking at the petals. And she's looking at the colours in the petals and how one colour will change to the other colour, and you can't really tell how all that's happening. Or there could have been three colours. And just that inner knowing that something had to create that. And whoever created that, that was my creator, that was my God. So it's very simple faith. It's the simplicity of a child, I guess. And so just knowing that there had to be a creator to create something so wonderful. So I guess that was my beginnings, and so just always knew that there was a God out there. I didn't know it as a name of God, just a creator. And as I get a little bit older, I remember getting very angry when I was about 9 years old, and because I couldn't hear the beautiful music anymore, I couldn't hear the angels singing anymore. So I was very fortunate. I was able to hear the angels singing up to about the age of 9, and it was beautiful music, and the closest I've probably ever come to remembering what that was like was listening, if you ever listen to Gregorian chanting. That reminds me of what I used to hear when I was a child, and you know, back in my days, back in the old days, we didn't have radios. Certainly not in our bedroom. There might have been one radio in the house. There wasn't TVs then. Certainly not the internet or anything like that. So, you know, where would I have heard it? How would I be able to hear all the music? So I was very fortunate hearing the angels singing to that very late age. And I guess there were other gifts as well going on, because I used to be able to see auras around things. I used to see the auras around people, around the trees, animals, and I thought everybody could see that. So it wasn't until I was a little bit older and realised that other people weren't seeing that, and I thought, gee, am I a bit crazy, a bit loopy? And so I stopped myself from seeing all those auras. And if someone had got me and said, look, Maree, this is what's happening, this is what you're seeing, it's all good, it's okay, it would have been quite interesting, but I didn't have anyone that was close to me that knew. I was a very shy child as well. And I used to have, on my school reports, it always said, Maree, you're daydreaming all the time. Maree is just daydreaming all the time. Well, I wasn't daydreaming, I was astral travelling. And I was off. And it was much more interesting than staying in the classroom, and I could travel and fly through the trees and off to different parks and wherever. And then I remember frequently I would all of a sudden clonk back into my body, look at the teacher and go, oh my gosh, I have no idea what the teacher has been talking about. I've lost that whole lesson. So I always was behind in school, I guess, and always on the school report, Maree, you're always daydreaming. But later I found out that it's actually astral travelling, which is leaving your body. And so, yeah, it would have been a lot better if someone had told me, it's not a good idea, Maree. Stay in your body, learn your lessons, learn what the teacher's trying to tell you, and it'll be better off, in the long run. But, times struggle, with kids with different gifts and abilities and sights and so forth. And I used to go out fishing with my dad a lot when he'd go fishing, and you have to be quiet when your father is fishing. So I'd sit on the stones and of course, what does a child like me do? Hop in the river, and off I'd go, astral travelling up the river or down. And I'd go and see where all the, you're going to laugh at this one, I would see the trout swimming in the water, and I would talk to them, and I would say, hey, see Dad's line's just over there, just go and hop on it so we can eat you tonight, and you'll be our dinner. And of course, bang, Dad would start winding in the trout. I think that's why I went all the time with Dad, because I seemed to be lucky. No, I was astral travelling and into the water and talking to the fish. Simplicity like a child. I didn't analyse it, I didn't think about it, I just was having fun, I was playing. And so then you go up the other direction and you go through the water. It was a lot of fun, it was cool as a child to be able to do all these things, but I didn't realise it was special or different or whatever label you'd like to put on it. It was part of my life, and I used to pray a lot to God, and I guess my first spiritual experience, major spiritual experience, was again around 9-10, and I was under the bedclothes. My sister was in the same room as me. There was a few years difference, but I was under the bedclothes and I was talking away to God, and I remember very distinctly praying to God and telling him that, God, I wish to dedicate my life to you. Do as you wish. Now, I don't know how much a 9-year-old would know about what you're dedicating and what you're doing, but I remember praying it and being very real about it and saying, I dedicate my life to you. And I remember seeing a beautiful white ball in front of me, pure white ball of light in front of me, and it started to come closer to me. I wasn't blinded by it, but it was bright, and it started coming closer to me, and then I went to sleep, and I don't recall any more. So that was my first spiritual experience, and I probably never told anybody about it until I was about 33, 34, because I didn't think anybody would believe a child, and I didn't know how to describe what I saw or what I did, and it was private, it was my choice, it was what I was doing, so it wasn't anything that you tell in public, because there was no, it was my decision, it was my choices. So and I used to pray a lot for my family, and I used to ask God to, there was some issues going on, my brothers were getting older, and there was getting into that testosterone, and there was fighting going on and arguing, and that happens in families, but I was sensitive, I guess, and so I'd pray to God and ask God that he would help my family get to know you like I know you. And I'd pray it every night, as a 9-year-old would, and pray it every night. And then this amazing man came into Mum and Dad's life, and Mum and Dad dedicated gave their lives to Jesus, I think that was the term, and we started going to church. I'd never gone to church before that, so I never knew about all this sort of stuff. It was just totally within myself. And so then I learnt that there was a name for this creator, God, and then started reading the Bible. I remember studying the Bible as a 16-year-old on my bed. I mean, really, what 16-year-old does that? So I guess I was quite different, and I would be studying the Bible and trying to understand certain terms and certain promises, and I would stand on those promises and ask for this to happen or that to happen. So I had quite an interesting beginning. There was some harsh things going on as well, but that's another story. So that's, I thought I'd share that a little bit more with you. And of course, over the years, I've brought those gifts back, and then because I let go of them for a few years, because I thought I was crazy, or I was seeing things that I shouldn't be seeing, or whatever it was. But I always talked to the angels and always talked to God. Kept that going. And then when I got into the New Age arena, and I remember reading or hearing about these people that could see auras, and thought, wow, that's amazing. Imagine being able to see things around people. That sounds awesome. I'll get a book, how to read auras or how to train yourself. So I started to read this book, and I was about 33-ish, and I'm not even halfway through the book, and it was like, hang on, I used to do this when I was a kid. And all of a sudden, the realization of what it was that I was doing as a kid, it was like, oh, that's what I was seeing. And then it was like, oh, well, okay, I know how to do that, so I'll just retrain myself. And so then I started to bring all these gifts back again. And then, of course, I wanted more gifts, and let's do more of this and see where it will take you. So there was, over the years, I've done lots of sitting down, a lot of prayers, a lot of meditations, a lot of fasting to bring more gifts in. And so, of course, now I can do what we call Orion healing, which is working on the soul and spirit of the person. And that's a wonderful treatment. It's going up and asking God what's going on, what's happening for this person, why is this person struggling, why are they stuck in life, what's happening. And so it can lead off into many different directions. And sometimes it's going in and seeing a past life, sometimes it's going in and seeing there's something wrong in the gene pool to be needing to be corrected, or sometimes there's something attached to the person that shouldn't be there. So you never quite know what you're going to see with each person, so it can be quite interesting and quite fascinating, and getting the answers for the person, and then with their permission going and changing what needs to be changed, and allowing that top up for their body with that unconditional love from God coming through. And of course, right at the end of the session, I top up their chakras, make sure they're flowing at their optimum level. I ask for another 3 angels to be assigned to the person to help with the healing and protection, and ask for God's unconditional love to come in and fill the person as much as their physical and spiritual bodies can handle. So it's a very lovely therapy, and everyone just feels great when they're walking out. So if you would like to ring me and inquire about any of the therapies I do, I'll give you my number again. So it's 027 49 50 90. So my business is kind of called Foot Bliss. So it has that 2 elements of a little bit of spiritual stuff there, that there's that bliss sort of feeling, but also connected to the feet, because when I do your feet, you're going to get that bliss feeling coming through you, and you're going to feel like you're walking on clouds. So there's certainly nothing wrong with that, and so you get a little bit lighter on your feet. So I have 2 clinics. I have a clinic here in Hastings, and I'm there Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, and in Waipakarau on Mondays and Fridays. And so I do I've been around in this field for 23 years, so there's lots of knowledge going on in my head. And if you've got some tricky cases, that's okay. I'll soon tell you if I don't think I can help. But sometimes it gets a bit confusing for medical profession. There's all sorts of things going on, and you just don't know where to start. And these viruses, the doctors are very quick to say, oh, you've got a virus, but they can't seem to tell you which one it is. And they just tell you to rest and drink plenty of water, and they don't even tell you to have some oranges and lemons. It's like, get back to basics, people. And lemons and oranges are good for us. They're high in vitamin C, and we need lemons. Going back to the boats with scurvy, people died. They had all the meat, and they had vegetables, or however class they were. They had all sorts of things, but if they didn't have fruit and they didn't have lemons or access to fruit, they died. We've forgotten this. People wake up. We need fruit. We need lemons. We need some vitamin C in our lives. We can't live just on meat. And there's a big craze going at the moment of high protein, high protein. Be very careful. I've been in this field I'm not growling, I've been in this field for 23 years. I've seen fads come and fads go. And the latest thing now is evening primrose oil or evening primrose, and then it disappears after a year. And then the next one comes in, And so at the moment there's a big fad on high protein, but be careful if your kidneys aren't in very good shape. It's too much pressure on your kidneys. And not only that, the high meat comes with the high fat content, and that thickens your blood, because it's the liver that has to try and break it down. If you're getting too much into your body too fast, the liver can't break it all down, and so then the blood gets quite thick, and then it's harder to circulate. Okay, and then it's also, if you imagine, the heart it goes through and I've got to say this right, the blood goes through the liver and comes into the heart, because the liver cleanses the blood before it gets into the heart, because you don't want bad blood into the heart either. But if there's too much fat going around and the liver can't cope with it, the blood gets thicker, and then the blood that's coming to the heart, it's kind of like sucked up like a straw, and if that's really hard, it's just quite a strain on the heart trying to get that blood through. So as good as protein is, there's everything in moderation. I'm a firm believer, everything in moderation. And if you have struggling with maybe some viruses going on, or a virus, you really want to stay away from the dairy products and the eggs and canola oil. They all feed the virus and keep it strong. And you don't want the virus strong, you want you strong. I know lots of things about all sorts of things. So you never know, if you're a bit tricky situation and you're not sure where to go or what to do, you can always give me a ring, make an appointment, and I'll talk to you. And if I don't think I can help you, or I'm not in that expertise, I'll soon tell you, okay? So you can trust me. and I've had lots of wonderful successes over the years, and sometimes it can feel like miracles with people. They've been struggling for 10 years with the pain and the burning on their feet. Or, a gentleman of 72, he came in 4 months ago, and he had burning on the feet, on the inside. It wasn't burning to touch on the skin, but the doctors didn't know what it was, and there was nothing showing in the bloods, and you're getting older, you've got to expect some things. There was nothing else wrong with him physically, it was just his feet. And of course it was driving him nuts. And of course you can imagine day and night, burning at night time, so you're not sleeping, you're tossing and turning. The wife was getting a bit ratty as well and he had had it for 15 years, so you can imagine everybody's a bit ratty with that. 15 years of this burning, constant burning on the feet. And he comes in and told me the story, and I'm like, I really think it is a virus in the nerves that's irritating the nerves. I'm not allowed to diagnose, so I have to be careful, because I can't prove it. I don't have $10 million to get all the scientists in to validate what I'm doing, so I can't prove it. So I can go into prison if I do say the wrong thing. So I believe it was a virus in the nerves. I'm not saying which one. And so I gave him some stuff to treat that type of virus, and within 3 days the burning had stopped. And 4 months later, he still hasn't got any burning. It's gone. He's free of it. So I've seen wonderful things. And, even with the feet, getting you back on your feet. I specialise in the feet and the bone structure of the feet, realigning them, bringing them back into a more correct position. Even the toes, we need our toes. We need our toes for walking. As simple as it sounds, when we walk off and we've got a bend on our toes, then we have a bend on our knees, and then we have a bend in our hips, a correct movement. If the toes are straight and locked in and fused, then we can only kind of shuffle or walk in flat-footed. Oh, you've got some noise going on. And so if the toes aren't bending and flexing, then you can't bend the knee either, and so then the knee doesn't get a proper movement, and so you can start to get knee issues and hip issues. So by getting the toes moving and getting them flexible, you're going to start walking better and placing your feet better. And you know, the toes have a wonderful throw-off effect. Because if you've heard of reflexology, which I do the reflexology as well, and that's working on the feet, the reflexology with the toes, that indicates the head area. So by working on the toes, you then can have this throw-off effect where the sinuses get better, the ears get better, the eyesight gets better, the migraines and the headaches start to come back down. You know, things can have that wonderful effect on the head space as well by correcting the toes. So, you know, I do work on lots of different conditions of the feet. You name it, I've seen it. There's nothing you can throw at me that's really different. 23 years of working on feet, I have seen it all. Well, I believe I have anyway. You might throw me, but I love a new challenge. And you know, if you've got hammer toes, that's where usually only the second toe has come up and it can hit the ground, and that's the first part that hits the ground, and so there's normally a lot of calluses there, and then the top part of the toe actually hits the shoe, and so again you've got calluses. Or you could have claw toes where all the toes start to claw under. That's not easy getting your feet into shoes. Or you could have a bunion, and of course that affects the big toe, and sometimes that comes over and hits the second toe, and then the third toe, and then everything's getting squashed in the shoes, but you need the width for the bunion. And some people get pain in the bunion, some people don't. You can get toes that are crossed over, and that's not very pleasant either, or toes that are just crooked. So there's lots of things that can be going, or you can even get the little toe. There's a condition, if you want to call it a condition, called Taylor's bunion, which is only on the little toes. It's also Taylor's bunion and sailor's bunion, because they used to sit cross-legged doing all those things, and they were the people that used to get those sort of issues. So you deal with all sorts of things going on with the toes. Sometimes the toenails don't look good. There's something happening with the toenails, or so you've dropped something on them, or there's a fungal underneath going on. You know, there's lots of ways you can heal the fungal. I like the hydrogen peroxide. It's very cheap. You can get it from the supermarket or chemist, and you just put it neat onto the nail, you know, and if it hurts, you can guarantee the fungus isn't around the nerve, and that's why it hurts, because it's nerve, but it's killing. So sometimes there is that saying, no gain without pain has to happen. Try not to, but sometimes it just does. Well, so I think we're kind of almost done, so I think we're going to have some music now, and thank you for joining me. And don't forget to have a look on the YouTube, because you'll be able to see my face, and that could be quite interesting, because you could have an imagination of my voice and what I might look like. So maybe you go and check it out and you'll get to see me actually talking to you. So thank you for joining me.